Well, news just in now that President Jacob Zuma has welcomed the release of the spy tapes. Let's get reaction. I'm joined in our Pretoria studios by DA leader Helen Zille. Premier, good day to you. What's your reaction to what President Zuma says? He seems happy the tapes have been released.
Well, he could have been happier a lot sooner if he was serious about wanting to have the tapes released. He's always said that he wanted his day in court. He did everything possible to prevent that. And part of the filibustering tactics was to prevent us getting any of the evidence that we needed for the review application. So if he welcomes it, that's good PR, but I wonder how genuine it is.
What now for the DA? You've got the transcripts. What do you do with it?
What we're going to do is have them checked by forensic experts, and then we're going to be reviewing them very carefully. We'll wait for the documents that we're getting from Judge Noel Hurt. And then our lawyers will tell us if we have grounds for a review application of the original decision to withdraw charges against Jacob Zuma.
It has been a long fight, this. It's certainly one that you've been fighting for a number of years now. The DA has used it in campaigns in the build-up to elections. What, if I may ask, Premier, if there's nothing on these transcripts of any use, what would your reaction be then?
Well, if there's nothing on these transcripts, it's going to be very explosive, because the National Prosecuting Authority said that these transcripts would prove conclusively that there was political interference in charging Jacob Zuma so that he couldn't become president. Now, if that turns out not to be the case, and if the tapes are just innocuous, they turn out in fact to be explosive.
Explain to me why. I understand you touched on it briefly. So if there's nothing on the tapes, it's still explosive. How would Helen Zille use that going forward after such a long fight?
Well, Gareth, the entire point of the fight was to be able to get a review application of the original decision to withdraw the charges against Jacob Zuma. So if the spy tapes do not prove conclusively that there was a political conspiracy to have Jacob Zuma charged, and that the charges were withdrawn for political reasons and not legal reasons, we will ask the High Court in North Gauteng to review the withdrawal of charges against President Zuma and reinstate those charges.
Give us a timeline. How urgent does the DA want to have this dealt with? It has, as I mentioned before, been a very long fight. I'm sure you, as many people, are looking for answers. Are you giving this a timeline at all as to when you want answers?
Well, the only thing that can determine it is the proper legal process, and that can still take a very long time. Unless the court deems the matter to be urgent, which happens very rarely, and this issue is already dragged out for 5 years, so this is the end of the beginning, as I put it. What we have to see now is a review process, which will take a long time, and I'm sure if the president loses it in the first round, he will appeal all the way for as long as it takes for him to try and see out his second term as president.
Interesting, you mentioned that. It has taken this long already, Premier. Do you think that's because there was delay tactics on behalf of President Zuma, or was it the South African courts doing their job properly, do you think?
Undoubtedly, there were delaying tactics by President Zuma and, in fact, the National Prosecuting Authority. The Supreme Court of Appeal flayed the National Prosecuting Authority for contributing to the delays and being rather less than keen, to put it mildly, to assist us in getting those tapes. So the bottom line is this: there's been a long effort through the courts to prevent us getting the documents and the tapes, with President Zuma's lawyers eventually saying in the Supreme Court of Appeal that they never had any case, that they have no case. And if President Zuma wanted his day in court, he certainly tried to prevent it for long enough with 10 million rand of taxpayers' money.
It certainly was a lot of money. Premier, as far as the presidency is concerned, we've discussed that if there is something on these tapes, as far as implicating the NPA's former head, that being Bulelani Ngcuka, will you sort court action against him, even though it is now done and dusted as far as he's concerned?
Well, I don't want to be speculative. We will go through those court transcripts, and there are many questions that need to be answered. The first that needs to be answered is who ordered that those phones be tapped? That was the head of the Scorpions, that was Leonard McCarthy, and of course the head at the time of the NPA, Bulelani Ngcuka. We need to know who orders the phones to be tapped of people at that level. Why were they tapped? Who instructed that? How did the tapes get into the hands of Jacob Zuma's lawyers? There are many, many questions that need to be asked and answered in this matter.
And just a final question to you. As far as the presidency is concerned, Premier, how would you rate the way the government has been handling it in the past few years? They've now come out after the court has ordered them to give these tapes up, no longer fighting there. But how do you think this could have been done better?
Well, if there was nothing to hide from the beginning, we should have got the spy tapes right at the beginning. And if Jacob Zuma really wanted to have his day in court, he could have had his day in court a very long time ago. It really just shows hypocrisy and a determination to undermine the institutions of our criminal justice system and make them subservient to powerful politicians. And of course, that will be the end of our democracy.
Premier, thank you very much indeed for your immediate reaction on today's news. DA leader Helen Zille speaking to us about the handing over of these spy tape transcripts to her earlier today. There will be plenty more reaction and analysis on this, I'm sure, in the coming days as they do get through more of that information.